Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, welcome to the bonus video, welcome to 15 minutes or so of me screaming about Avengers Endgame. If you're new here, hey, my name's Amanda, I make subpart videos on the internet. This is a special bonus video because I'm not over Avengers Endgame. I doubt most of you who've clicked on this are over it either. I'm wearing my Iron Man shirt in loving memory, and I have an entire page in my bullet journal with the title Endgame Hot Takes, so I wanted to go through the movie and talk about it, but I wanted to wait and do it until the day after opening weekend. I wanted to give like the vast majority of people the opportunity to watch it and formulate opinions. This video contains a lot of spoilers, so don't watch it unless you want to be spoiled. Thank you. Just like really fast background on my engagement in the series. When I was 10, Iron Man came out. I'm 21 now. Iron Man came out in 2008. And I watched that movie. I loved that movie. I followed the whole saga straight through, with a few rare exceptions when I just haven't had the time to get to a theater or the money to get to a theater because I was a broke college student. But with very few exceptions, I followed the entire MCU up until its conclusion here with Endgame. So I made a point to go and see Endgame in theaters when it came out. I actually was there on Thursday night when my local theater had its very first showing because I wanted to experience this massive 3-hour movie that people have been dying to see with everyone else in my area that was just as excited for it as I was. And I walked into the movie with admittedly low expectations just because the last few Marvel movies, with the exceptions of Captain Marvel and Black Panther, have kind of undershot my expectations, so I went in with like pretty low expectations. I was proved wrong. I liked the movie a lot. Clearly, I have thoughts that I'm going to share with you now. This is by no means a comprehensive review. This is by no stretch of the imagination like an authoritative take on the movie. This is literally just like the verbal version of a text post on Tumblr. It's just me like word vomiting at y'all for like 15 minutes about this movie. So if this is the kind of content you enjoy, then you came to the right place. The last thing I'm going to say before I get into my hot takes is that I am going to be talking under the assumption that y'all already know these characters and already know these premises, so I'm not going to spend too much time explaining who's who and doing what and all of that, just because this video would be really long, and also I'm assuming that the vast majority of you already know who these folks are, so I'm just gonna not do that for brevity's sake. So when I said these are in no particular order, I really meant it. So we're gonna start at the very end of the movie because I really want to talk about the passing of the mantle from Steve Rogers to Sam Wilson as becoming the new Captain America. And I'm the kind of person who tries to find symbolism in things. I don't really know why. Shouldn't even say try, because it comes just to me naturally. I don't even really think about it anymore, but that was one of those moments where I saw the symbolism right away, and I don't know if it was meant to be a symbolic thing or if the creators and the movie directors and producers just got really lucky, but I thought that it was really symbolic, just that motion of Steve Rogers, who from the 1940s on has been the quintessential American man, and in the 40s was created this Captain America figure around him because he was the stereotypical or the nation's ideal of an American. He was fit and blonde and white and a man, and so he was the quintessential American, and that's what America looked like in the 40s. And it was very symbolic to me that this guy, who was emblematic of America in the 40s, and insert the largest eye roll you've ever seen here, is passing the mantle of Captain America, who defined the nation when he was first created as a character, and he passed that role on to a younger African-American man, who arguably now is more a reflection of what America looks like than a white guy. And I thought that that was a very symbolic transition. Like, the old white man, who used to be the very definition of Americanness, is passing the mantle on to a new generation of Americans, and an American that probably reflects visually and physically more of what America looks like now than an old white guy. I don't really know if that was intentional, but that visual of how Americanness has changed and how the shield that is so emblematic of American values and American this and American that is now in the hands of someone that, quite honestly, our president would probably hate to see embodying a nation. He low-key already does, because he picks on our old president a lot. But anyway, also while we're on the subject of that last scene, I want to point out an unpopular opinion of mine, which that it made sense for Steve to choose to live a full life in his time rather than just go and return the time stones and come straight back. I think that the overarching theme of his whole story arc, and I think it was poorly explained in my opinion because I had to put it together myself and it took me kind of a long time. But the overarching theme of Steve's was that of, you know, he's a man in a strange land, like he doesn't belong in that world, and instead of learning to adapt, he just couldn't make himself, and that's why he was always stuck on Peggy, always looking at that compass, always thinking about the past and what he could have had. Like, he was never going to be content with the world as it was, and he had a way to get that back, and I think that given just how he is as a person, it made sense. And furthermore, I think that Bucky knew he was doing that, and I've seen like a lot of like meta on Tumblr where people, sorry, my hands are like down here, so if I'm not flailing around, that's why, but I think that Bucky knew that that was coming, and I think that that's why they had the farewell that they did. So I don't think that like Steve did it arbitrarily. The next bullet point literally just says, okay ladies, now let's get in formation, because that's just who I am as a person. But I love the theme that I've seen both in Endgame and in Infinity War of the women coming around each other and protecting each other. I saw it in Infinity War when Scarlet Witch was in the trenches and she was getting borne down on by one of Thanos's goons, and she was saying like, oh, you're alone, and then Natasha and Okoye showed up and were like, psych, nah, she's not. And then we saw the resurgence of that times 10 in Endgame, and it was the best thing I've ever seen. And like, that's the kind of stuff, how many times can I clap my hands in this video, but that's the kind of stuff that I wanted to see when I was a kid. Like when I was 10 and watching Iron Man, and it was just men doing all the cool things, men getting the flying suits, men getting the armor, men having the superpowers, and all I got to see was Pepper Potts in a backless dress. Which, I mean, like, you go sis, you're hot. But also, like, I wanted that representation, so, you know, 10-year-old me wanted what 21-year-old me got to see in the theater on Thursday night. And I don't get emotional at media. I'm not a crier. I'm not a... It takes a lot to move me because I'm cynical and kind of a bitch sometimes, but that got me. Like, I teared up a little bit because all I kept thinking is this broad spectrum of powers and abilities and backgrounds and all of that stuff just made me really, really happy. And the way it was framed, which is another thing I appreciate, the way it was framed, it wasn't framed as this is the token feminist shot that we're just doing to appease our followers. It was very natural, it made sense, it was funny and cinematic and awesome, and I think that they couldn't have framed it better if they tried. Okay, moving on down the line, speaking of friendships and stuff, I got some things to say about the themes of found family and the friendships. Let's start with Clint and Natasha. Where was that all my life? Like, I feel like they hinted at it at like the first Avengers movie, and then it just tapered off, and then it came back in full force at Endgame, and honestly, I was not mad at all, because their friendship is so good and pure to me, and they're just funny and everything that a best friend pair should be. I loved that there was no hint of attraction, sexual or otherwise, just pure, honest, good friendship. The kind of friendship that's forged by knowing each other so intimately, knowing each other and their trauma so well, and that is something that I want to see more of in media, because friendships can be just as important and just as intimate as romantic relationships, and to not depict that, in my opinion, is a disservice, because we will model in real life what we see on screen, as it's been proven time and time and time again. So I think if we see more of those relationships on screen, life will start to imitate art in that respect. But that aside, their friendship, it just makes me so happy. Like, I support that. And also, along those lines, I know that there's also some discourse, trademark sign, about the Natasha death scene. I think that it made sense for her character. I'm firmly in that camp. I think that that's the way she would have wanted to go out. I think that she understood that it would have just been pure selfishness to live while Clint, who has a family, would die. And I think that when she made that choice, it was based in that reasoning, and I think that that just shows her faith that they were gonna win and that he wasn't gonna get his kids and his wife back. And I think that because of that, her death made sense. I'm okay with death, even deaths of my favorite characters, if their deaths make sense. And in that way, I think her death made a lot of sense. Also, I have some feelings about siblings, more specifically Gamora and Nebula. One of my friends actually asked me last night when we were talking about the film if who in our relationship was the Gamora and who was the Nebula, and I said that I'm more of the Gamora and my sister's more of the Nebula. Whenever I see siblings on screen, I'm equal parts delighted because the dynamic is funny, but I'm also critical because you can tell when writers who don't have siblings write siblings. It's just weird. Their whole interaction, everything from looking at Quill and being like, that guy? Really? Well, it was him or a tree, to Gamora extending her hand and Nebula slapping it away, that's peak sibling. And let me tell you, every time we were in the theater and something like that happened, there were like a select few people that laughed. And I was one of them. And after a while I noticed that the laughter was kind of all coming from the same direction. I just kept thinking like, y'all must have siblings, because I can't think of anyone else that would find this as entertaining as it actually is. But it goes back to that whole thing of like, family and friend relationships are as deep and intimate, or can be as deep and intimate and life-altering as romantic relationships. And the fact that at the end of the day, just like it was in the old canon and the new canon, Gamora saved Nebula. And that's what sisters do. Let's talk about Thor and Tony's trauma and how I wish that had been handled differently, because yikes. Here's the thing, Thor and his reclusiveness and drinking and all of that, that is a very real PTSD response. And I have no issue with that. I just don't appreciate it being played off as a punchline. And a lot of people have talked about it, so I'm not gonna, you know, rebang the gong, but I just think that, I don't know, I personally didn't laugh in the theater. Like, everyone else was laughing, and I was kind of sitting there looking around me going, why is this funny to them? Because it's not funny. And it wasn't funny, and I thought it was really sad, because there are people with PTSD that live that way. And they deserve respect and help. And I think that it's a shame that they chose to make that a laughingstock. Tony's PTSD has been something that I feel like has been mishandled, glossed over, and slightly decentralized and demonized ever since he had that dream. Granted, the dream was brought on by Wanda messing with his head in Age of Ultron, but that vision of all of them being dead and them blaming him, and that's what caused him to want to build a shield around the world. And again, nightmares, hallucinations, very valid parts of PTSD. I should know, I have PTSD. So I think that it wasn't played off like a joke, which I appreciated, but I think that it could have been referenced in a less throwaway kind of way. Okay, let's end this on a high note. Let's talk about the final battle, because I was almost out my seat, y'all. Like, about midway through the film, when they all started assembling together to fight Ultron, is when my theater went from a hushed, respectful crowd dutifully munching on popcorn to yelling every 5 seconds, shushing each other when there were swear words because there's kids in here, and like just being a really interactive audience. And I'm gonna talk about that in a couple seconds, but I loved that final fight scene. To me, and I don't say this lightly, but to me, the scope of it and the framing of it was on par with that final battle scene in the last Lord of the Rings movie. It was that good. And I love a good epic battle scene, I really do. I have a weird need for speed / need to punch people, and since I can't actually fight somebody, I just watch it happen on screen. It didn't feel overdone. It didn't feel too fast or too slow. It was a brilliantly timed fight scene, in my opinion. I loved, and the whole theater lost it when Steve picked up the hammer, and when Thor went, I knew it! Someone else in the audience was like, yeah, we all knew it, boy! And I was just sitting there going, okay. The whole theater lost it when, like, their favorite characters were coming out of portals. Like, you could tell, like, there was a massive roar when T'Challa and Shuri and Okoye stepped forward, and when Peter Parker showed up, everybody started screaming. It just took the whole viewing experience to another level to be sharing all those moments and all these moments of triumph and emotion with a whole group of people that, like, you don't know, you're never gonna see them again. Well, in my town you might, there's only 24,000 people. But like, you're probably not gonna see them again. It was just a really awesome interactive experience, but I think the thing that got me the most was, I'm gonna get emotional, sorry, but the part, and you'll see why this means, because there was the part where Tony looked at Strange and was like, is this the one out of 14 or however many thousand chances that we win? And Strange was like, I can't tell you, it'll mess it up. And then later Strange just looked at him and gave him that one finger. And I started crying a little bit because I kind of had a feeling that Tony was gonna die. He's been my favorite for the longest because when I was a kid, I was 10, I had just begun the series of diagnoses that would lead to the grand old, hey, you're chronically ill and you'll never get better, and everything's wrong with you under the sun, pretty much. And when I was 10, I was starting to get the diagnoses and people were starting to say, like, you're always gonna be like this. And I kind of learned that I was different when I was about 10. And so I liked Tony Stark because he took something that was wrong with him that would never be better, and he made it into a weapon, and he weaponized it into something that was good. and something that would make him hurt less because he was helping other people that were hurting, and that he was taking all the crap that happened to him and he was trying to be good and he was trying to be better. That coupled with the whole thing of PTSD, and which I have, and the anxiety and the depression and the desperately trying to do the right thing and all of it, like, I understand. And having a father that never really cared about you, like, I understand that too. And so when he was like fighting and like wondering if there was any hope and wondering if it was ever gonna be over, and then, ew, I'm so gross. And then he got those sign from Strange that, yeah, this was it. Like, I want someone to give me the one sign and be like, yes, this is the time that you're gonna be fine. Like, this is the 1 out of 14,000 or whatever chances that you're gonna be okay. And I'm never gonna get that, but still moved me to tears. And then I also cried when Tony died because, like, I want to rest too, you know? I don't get to yet, but I want to. So those are all my hot takes, but in conclusion, I would just like to say, like, I think everyone, young or old, like, the reason why superhero movies appeal to such a wide age range is because at the end of the day, we all want to believe that we could have that power, we could have that strength, we could have that responsibility to stand up and fight against injustice and fight against evil and take down the big baddie, and we believe in our own power to stand up against some evil force and defeat them, and we believe that we can be part of a team like that, and we believe in our own abilities, and we like seeing them echoed back on a larger scale in the form of these heroes. And I think at the end of the day, everybody wants something to aspire to, and everyone wants something to look at and be like, that's me, but better, and if they can do it, then I can do it. At least for me, and probably for a lot of other people, it's easier to imagine that we have that strength when we have something to look at on a screen. And I think for an entire generation, I think that for everyone that grew up on these movies, everyone that even grew up on the comics before the movies were ever even thought of, I think that that's what those heroes gave us. Everyone needs something to aspire to. Everybody wants something to aspire to. Everybody wants to look up to something greater than themselves. And superheroes give even the most cynical of us something to believe in. So yeah, that's the end of my Avengers TED Talk. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this made sense, and I'm sorry for crying because that was gross and disgusting, but if you like this video and want to see more from me, I would really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button down below. I am planning on making a video very similar to this next week. It'll be up on May 1st or May 2nd, right after the 100 Season 6 premiere, because I love that show so much, and I'm so happy it's finally coming back. So stay tuned for those hot takes, because that's going to be exciting. Don't forget to leave me a comment and tell me all about your Endgame watching experience, stuff you heard in theaters, what kind of snacks you had. I had Reese's Pieces because my theater lets us bring things from home. Yeah, boy! Tell me what your favorite scene was. Tell me your own hot takes. I'm available in the comments. I'm available on Tumblr, which is in the link in my bio. Just go ham. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day, night, week, whatever. I need to go to bed because it's like literally 10 o'clock at night. But thank you so much for watching. I love you 3000.